The Big 12 is still the number one basketball conference in America, and you can't tell me otherwise unless you try to tell me otherwise. This is Locked On Big 12.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Big 12. I'm Drake Toll from America's number one Big 12 podcast, Locked On Big 12. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. That is Robbie Triano, the Triano kid, who's here to talk Big 12 hoops, good, bad, Utah or the field next season of football, and Brett Yormark, Senor Brett, is taking this puppy to Mexico. Is he the saving grace of the Big 12 in expansion? Robbie, Robert, Bob, if you will, the Big 12 is the best conference in college basketball. That is a statement that I say, that I stand behind, that I can back up. When you hear those words, what say you?
I agree, but I also...
Cut it. That's it. Sweet. Good show. I feel like today we were really at our best.
I agree, but I also don't think their marketing has really done... How can I say it? I don't think their marketing has necessarily been what they want based on how the past two tournaments have gone for the men's and women's. Like we have saw commercials this year from the Big 12 during Big 12 basketball games where they're like the best league in college basketball, the best conference in college basketball. Yeah. And I agree, during the regular season, I think every game is a must watch. I think the competitiveness from the top to bottom is really good. And I think we have some elite brands and schools and head coaches here. I agree. But in the past two tournaments, no teams have played in the Final Four, men's and women's. And last year, two teams played in the Elite Eight for the men's. That was Kansas State, who didn't make the tournament this year, and then Texas, who is going to the SEC. So my whole point is, like, can you say you're the best league in college basketball right now if you don't have a team competing for a national championship? Like, I get it. The other 2 years before these two, Kansas won national championship, Baylor won one, and then either Kansas or Baylor would have won the one in 2020. So I get it. There's champions in this league, but I don't think Brett Yormark is like happy that his league is known as the best regular season league instead of a league that has national champions right now.
I am Alabama. That is the best football team in America. The best football program in America, as of Nick Saban's departure, was Alabama. Alabama had not won a championship for a couple of years. They had missed the college football playoff before under Nick Saban. That's why they played the Sugar Bowl against Kansas State. It didn't change the fact that Alabama had that kind of prowess for what they've done over the course of the last 15 years. Does the Big 12 have enough rapport for this just not to be a conversation, for it just to be, oh, the Big 12 has been so good for so long, it's sustained to the point where we still can't argue this conference is number one and nobody else is close? Because that was the argument a month ago. No one else is in the same stratosphere as the Big 12 competitively.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. But I feel like the Big 12 recently just claimed this throne as like the best conference in college basketball. Like for a while, the ACC really held this title because you have Duke and UNC and they had that. And then you see like the rise of Kansas and Baylor, and you see like, wow, like this league is so deep. And I really think like in the last 4 or 5 years, like that mantra has really taken its own. So like I do worry though about if the Big 12 continues this trend, what's going to happen? Because later we're going to talk about Brett Yormark, and we talk about the Big 12 as a league that needs to kind of like gain things incrementally so they can catch up with the SEC and the Big 10. Not having a team in the Final Four, not having a team compete for a national championship for 2 straight years, when you have schools like Kansas, you have Baylor, you're now going to have in Arizona, who's not in it as well. You have so many great programs. Houston, who should have done it this year, but injuries didn't allow it. Like, they need to capitalize on that, or else they can't be airing those advertisements anymore, or can't like have Fran Fraschilla over every microphone say best league in college basketball. Like I got tweeted at the other day because I commented like this exact same thing that I'm saying, and someone was like, "How can you judge a league off of a single elimination tournament?" It's like, isn't that the point? Like we judge who's the best teams in college basketball by the tournament. Like, I think it's weird to be like, oh, but they're the best regular season tournaments. Like, I'm sure if Brett Yormark had the option of picking best regular season league or league with champions, he would pick the champions every single time because that's what we remember. And also, isn't that the sign if your league has a really good team? So that's all I'm saying.
There are a couple things here that I will unpack from that. The Baylor and Kansas did win a couple within the last 4 years. So the recency, it's a recency thing of your last two tournaments have not gone well. That's why the Big 12 is not getting the love that it was. Though, if you take the last 5 years, which over the course of the history of college basketball is not a very big size of, not a very big margin, the Big 12 is certainly number one. Now, when it comes to this, I'm going to do the same thing this person on, I'm assuming it was Twitter or X, did. In a single elimination format, I do believe there's enough parity that you can't make the case, oh, it was just a bad matchup for this conference. You know, like, oh, they don't match up with all the Big East or the Mountain West, or, oh, this for the Big 12, this was just an injury problem. To me, teams are banged up. Everybody can make the case of a bad matchup for how that just suits your argument no matter who you are. It truly is when you get to March, just anything can happen. It's the reason that 13 seed goes to the Sweet 16 that gets beat by 30 because they had 2 games where they were hot and then they were their normal selves in the round of 16 and got blasted. That's what happens in March is weird things. It's called madness for a reason because none of it makes any sense. If it is madness, truly, then I don't know if we can judge the Big 12 as a whole based off of that single elimination madness. Please defend that or go against it.
So people say that this is a tournament of parity, and I agree. For like the sneaky team that can get in, or the first
St.
round
Peter,
upset,
right?
Like an Oakland, and then you had last year like FAU. Like, wow, that's a great story. Parity. But if you look at Ken Palm's ratings since 2014. Every team that has won a national championship has ranked top 3 in Ken Palm. Every single team. So when you look at it, we say it's a league or a tournament of parity, but usually the champion is one of the teams that really did deserve it and like statistically deserved it. And Houston was the team this year that could have done that. So I understand. Yeah. Injury wise, like they could have done that. And like UConn just may be this wagon and we may just be like overreacting and I might just be like, oh, whatever. But I really do believe that this league has the ability to make national champions. We saw it. We saw even before Texas Tech played in a national championship. So when you don't have those teams reach the Final Four or reach the championship game, that's where I'm like, why? Like this league is like promoting itself so much. So I understand like, things happen in the tournament. Teams get eliminated like Baylor. I'm sure if Baylor played that game again, even though Clemson went deeper than we thought, I think Baylor would win that basketball game. So like, I understand there's some madness, but also this league does reward, or this tournament does reward the best teams because the best teams usually win.
That's a great analysis what you just did here. What you just did is you took Ken Palm and said maybe the Big 12 has 10 top 40 teams analytically, but what we've seen is that there is a trend. While it's madness, there is a trend. And it's the best teams in the country win March Madness on the whole. Since 2002, I think since 2002, every team has been in the top 25 defensively, top 40 offensively for Ken Palm. So at some point we deduced that the elite teams in the country are winning March Madness in the last 2 years. The Big 12 has not had the elite team to win March Madness. Injuries be damned. It happens to everybody. Robbie, let's go into spring football is here. Yay. They're doing the stuff. They're throwing the ball. They got that team out west that's not named BYU. It's actually the opposite. It's Utah, who is how you say good. I at this point, I think it's them or the field in the Big 12. Let's go there next on Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV. Amazon Fire TV is where I go to combine two things that I love, fires and TV, but not literally, because that would likely break your TV. Amazon Fire TV instead gives you a destination for sports, live games, highlights, in-depth analysis, and even Locked On channels. That's right. They've created Fire TV channels to deliver constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, including Locked On and pro leagues and college conferences as well, all for free. Fire TV channels lets you dive into the game analysis, highlights, more to keep up to date with the NBA, MLB, March Madness, and a whole lot more. Not to mention the great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos as well. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, what are you doing? What are you doing? You should. Trust me. Learn more. Amazon.com/Locked On Fire TV. It is Amazon.com/Locked On Fire TV. That is Robbie Triano. I am not. Utah or the field in Big 12 football. I was looking at today. I was doing the calculations. We are less than 150 days away from football season. We're getting closer to football season. Spring football is here. Our spring games are happening this month, which rocks. And honestly, body of work, full roster. Utah is a wagon, a bookshelf in the Big 12, and the schedule favors the Utes. In the question of them or the field, who do you go with?
I think right now you have to say Utah, even though I do think this league has some of the best quarterback play we've seen in a really long time. Like if you were to compare this league to the year that Baylor won the Big 12 championship, like that league had some of the worst quarterback play. Like it was really, really bad. But you look at this year.
Hey, what are you saying about Utah? Gary Bohannon? Shut up. He's back.
Well, he's back now. He's back now at BYU, but you have Utah Cam Rising. I hope that he comes back and he is healthy, because I think that is a major reason why I think we have Utah being this good team, or this team that is going to be the clear-cut winner in the Big 12, because they have this type of quarterback. And if he's playing, I think it's over for the rest of the league. But you look at the rest of the league. You have Arizona and Noah Fafita. You have Kansas State, Avery Johnson, the quarterback that I am looking forward to watching the most. You have Kansas with Jalen Daniels coming back. I hope he is healthy. You have Texas Tech. You have KJ Jefferson with UCF. And then you have Shedeur Sanders, which may be the most intriguing quarterback or most intriguing team, honestly, in the Big 12 next year. But however, I don't know what teams I necessarily trust, because can I trust Oklahoma State to do what they did last year? And I have no idea what's happening at the quarterback position. I think they have a great defense. I think they have the best head coach in the league, but I'm not necessarily sure. Utah is the most sure thing, I think, in this league. They showed what they can do in the Pac-12 over the last 3 years, winning 2 conference titles. They enter in with one of the best head coaches in the league and probably the best quarterback in the league. So give me Utah.
Yeah, Oklahoma State's got 10 returners on offense, and certainly the quarterback conversation for them is one that has been controversial for the last couple of years under Mike Gundy and what exactly they want to do. You know, Spencer Sanders and how that all shook out with him going to Ole Miss, and Alan Bowman's existence in this world for his 7th college season that he has been granted. West Virginia, a Kansas State who's sitting around there, and even Kansas. I think Kansas is my dark horse favorite because the way their schedule shakes out to actually make the Big 12 championship against Utah. I wonder, should we bet on a West Virginia this year? Can we trust a Kansas State? Do we know enough about Chris Kleiman as a head coach to want to believe in the Wildcats? Like, when you look at that middle tier, how do you start to separate the Mountaineers or the Wildcats or the Jayhawks or even the other Wildcats at Arizona with Fafita and the question marks surrounding them?
Yeah, I think right now you have Utah, and the team that I would have number 2 right now is Kansas State. And obviously, I kind of root more for Kansas State, but I do think they have the quarterback that can just do so many things. He is so dynamic in that offense. Can
I pause you there for 1 second? I want to give a really big vote of confidence to Chris Kleiman here, because you're saying Kansas State, they lost a lot in the portal, which you could argue was positive attrition. They have technically a first-year starter at quarterback, and they don't have as many of the offensive weapons as they did last year. Like, this isn't a rebuild for Kansas State, obviously, but they aren't roster-wise as proven as they were last season yet, though you're still buying the Wildcats. That says a lot about the head coach.
Yeah, and I really think it says a lot about the culture, because you look at Arizona, new head coach. Okay, I trust they have a great quarterback play, but they have to install a whole lot of new things. Kansas, yeah. I think Kansas you were right about the dark horse. I think that's a team I really do trust, because they do have Jalen Daniels. And even though they lost Andy Koltanicki, who is one of the best offensive minds just in college football. When I worked for Big 12 Radio, we had him on, and after 3 minutes during a 15-minute interview, in our text chat, we were like, he's going to be a head coach one day, and there's nothing we can do about it, because he's going to be really good. But when it comes to Kansas State, you're definitely right. They even lose Cooper Beebe. They lose their play caller and Colin Klein. It is a lot of change there, but I do trust Chris Kleiman so much to instill that culture, because I think when you watch Kansas State football, you kind of know exactly what you're going to get. You're going to get a team that plays really hard. You get a team that's going to do the things fundamentally sound in the right ways. And you also get really good defense. And now you get Avery Johnson, who I think is this dynamic person, like with his feet and also, as a quarterback with his arm. I do worry about who he's going to be passing, throwing the ball to, but that's what I love about Kansas State. There's so many players that are undervalued there that rise up because Chris Klieman is one of the best developers of talent in this entire league. Also a team to watch for, and I think we could spend an hour on, but we definitely won't because of how attention spans and people on YouTube and content work. But Colorado, there's not a more interesting team again in college football. I understand Deion Sanders, but you have Shedeur Sanders, being the quarterback, probably going to be the face of the NCAA video game or EA Sports video game. And they were the number 2 team in the transfer portal, according to On3. Like, honestly, last year we saw that, about 40 different players come and go, but 25 players coming in. A lot of them are really highly rated from good schools. That's a team I'm definitely keeping. And they also have the best 5-star talent in the league when you have Travis Hunter and now Shedeur Sanders, who is just probably going to be a Heisman favorite. So I'm keeping an eye on Colorado to enter that upper echelon of teams.
Sources have said that Colorado has 299 overall football players in Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders on the new video game, which is good. That's pretty, which makes sense. Like one of the best quarterbacks in the country in a league filled with good quarterbacks. Before we move on, this has been a long conversation about football, but it's making me happy. It's making me tickle in the tick. Oh, by the way, Ben Sinnott, R.I.P. He ain't dead yet, but for when he dies, hopefully 50 years down the line or more, it's going to suck to see Kansas State without him. But let's go to that weird less than middle of the pack with a BYU, a TCU, who we haven't mentioned very much, or UCF, even Texas Tech. What do you do with those guys that are hanging around there? Can anybody there make their way into the top 3 in the league?
I feel like for the past 3 years, we've been saying Texas Tech is the dark horse so much. Well, really since Joe McGuire took over.
Yeah, true.
And Taj Brooks, I don't know how many years he's in college, but he's like, I'm coming back. It's like, all right.
He's 45 years old, has 3 kids.
And the thing about Texas Tech, Joey McGuire, excellent recruiter. I think he's done such a good way of now he has a 5-star talent in his team. And also when we had him on Big 12 radio, he always talked about how we put an emphasis on getting just big dudes. And I think that's a great way to operate as a football team and as a college football team. Hey, we're just going to get really large human beings so they can block human beings and also run over human beings. So good for Texas Tech. But the biggest issue about Texas Tech has been quarterback and the health of the quarterback. They can protect Behren Morton, and if Behren Morton can be healthy, watch out for Texas Tech. But the rest of the league, I do think there's going to be some stinkers this year. And I think one of them is your BYU Bears. Or not BYU Bears, Baylor Bears. Sorry about that.
Both of them could be stinkers this year, though.
No, BYU is going to be good. I believe in
religious schools in the conference, or Jake Ratzloff, the first Jewish starting quarterback in BYU history. I'm not sure Big 12, but maybe, by the way. Now, Brett Yormark. He is he's our guy, he's Senor Brett taking us down to Mexico City. And you've got some fat opinions on that here on Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, PHAT, your team every day. Hey, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel's where I go to make money. The other day, I was like, rent is coming up. What can I do? I can go to the MLB where guys are doing that baseball. There's a guy. I can tell you his first name. I can't tell you his first name. Last name, Crochet, for the Chicago White Sox. And I said, this guy's got a cool name. What if he struck out 9 of the Atlanta Braves? And that is exactly what he did at plus 450. So I said, hey, FanDuel, rent's coming up. Can I give you $20 for this? And they said, give us $20. We'll give you over $100 back if it hits. And it did. Brian Crochet? Maybe. At FanDuel right now, there is no time. You can put a $5 bet on any of the Jazz you want to put it on, even the Utah Jazz. And if it hits, you get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. $200. You can use it in the tourney, MLB, NBA, NHL, so much more. FanDuel.com/lockedon to make your first bet a big win. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Go to FanDuel.com/locked on today. Hey, Brett Yormark exists, and in expansion, I think that is the key cog that not just keeps the Big 12 alive, but keeps them relevant in comparison to the SEC and the Big Ten. The same guy that brought in a BYU, UCF, Cincinnati, and Houston. And no, he didn't. He brought in Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah, which was a huge move for this conference. I think he'll bring in 4 more teams from the ACC. Is that it? Like, is the Big 12 thriving, expanding because of Brett Yormark and his Senor Brett, who's sending teams to Mexico and putting, videos of the championship game in Times Square? The guy's just getting creative here.
Yeah, Brett Yormark, let's just be honest, and I'm pretty sure you've said the same thing before. Brett Yormark is the reason the Big 12 still exists. If the Big 12 just did the thing where they just hired, the athletic director or who, finally was in the business for so long and finally got
Linda Livingstone, Big 12 commissioner.
Exactly. Or they got just the Big 12 wouldn't be alive
Jamie
anymore.
Pollard, Big 12 commissioner. Yeah.
Because they need a businessman, because this is what this conference and what college football is. It's no longer we care about the student athletes and amateurism and put on just no, it's a business. And it's now just fully in our face when Oklahoma and Texas laugh. It's just this is a business. So yeah, I think expansion is the way for the Big 12 to keep on thriving, the way to keep on making sure that you are secure, because I think if there's a chance to gain or to get an opportunity from chaos or from a bad thing from something else, like what will happen to the ACC, you have to take advantage of it, even though morally, do we want a 20-team Big 12 that isn't necessarily teams directly in the Midwest or in the heart of the country? I don't think we necessarily want that, but if you want to be a business and keep on thriving, Brett Yormark needs to do that.
Agreed. Here's, in my opinion, I think if you are of the mind, you out there, the people that are listening to this, the Big 12 should become an elite basketball conference, bring in Gonzaga and UConn and maybe a Duke. That is what the ACC branded itself as, and they sunk. They died because it doesn't push the needle. Football pushes the needle. Look at a Georgetown, who once upon a time was a basketball powerhouse. They made money with the sport. But the second you become bad at basketball, that goes away. There isn't as much brand power with that sport, and you don't get the money you do in football. So Yormark isn't trying to make the Big 12 a basketball-only powerhouse because it doesn't bring in the same amount of revenue. You don't get the college football playoff revenue that we're all chasing after. Instead, what he's doing is going to Mexico. He's doing the New York stuff. He's doing the BAPE thing or having Nelly do the halftime show. Is that enough? Is the Mexico stuff enough to make this conference relevant?
No, it's not.
Okay.
And we've talked about this before, but the Big 12 just needs to win. Big 12 needs to win football games. The Big 12 needs to go to the playoff and not get blown out by Georgia in a national title game. And I'm not saying TCU did this terrible thing. They still made a national championship game. But the issue is, if we can never take these teams seriously and they can be competitive to the point where you're not turning the game off after the first half. The Big 12 needs teams that compete to that level. But also we talk about Mexico and the news that they're going to delay Mexico another year. I feel like Brett Yormark is that person who gets a job and is just so ambitious. You and I have been there. We've gotten jobs and we come in and we're I want to do this, and this. And everyone's really excited. Wow, man, we got this person who's so ambitious, who wants to do all these things. And then you realize as you're doing the job, it's this is not really high on my pecking order. And also everybody around me doesn't seem that motivated about it anymore as they were when I first got the job. And also I don't even really care about it. I just said it because I just really wanted to impress some people. And it's just a headache for everybody. I feel that's what this Mexico situation is. Good for Brett Yormark, good to do these things and get people excited and talking about the Big 12 and owning the media and having people talk about you the way they never talked about you before. But now it's all right, we got to come back to earth. This thing doesn't really matter that much going to Mexico. Does it really bring up the value of the Big 12? Or do we believe that people in Mexico are now going to follow Utah, are now going to follow Cincinnati football? Probably not. So I understand them delaying it. I wouldn't be shocked if they just cancel the whole thing because it's I don't think anybody would be bothered if they took that away. I just think Brett Yormark is very ambitious, but I think now he's realizing I should probably taper it back a little bit.
In the world of, hey, Brett, we could spend some time trying to get Virginia Tech to come play in our fun little conference. And Brett goes, no, Mexico City's on the phone. We got to get down there for some basketball. All right. I want BYU baseball in Mexico City stat. I don't think that's what's happening at the Big 12 headquarters in Frisco. I just, it's fun. The fluffy stuff is fun. The Babe stuff is fun. Nelly is fun. Having Shaq Diesel or whatever he wants to be called, do the Big 12 tournaments, like, oh, it's great. But today, it didn't matter for anything. It didn't do anything for you. It just became fun, entertaining, but it doesn't equate to dollars from the TV companies, and that's what you want. Robbie, I think the Big 12 stays alive. I made the case on yesterday's show that the Big 12 does. I think they're in a good spot. And I feel like you're in a good spot. You look really good. You sound really good. I'm glad that you're here today. Where can folks who also liked you find your stuff?
You can follow me at Twitter at the Triano Kid. You can follow my YouTube, subscribe. Hi, I'm Robbie. I just put out a video on Caleb Williams because I live in Chicago and I work for the #1 rated Chicago radio station in the city. And all we do is talk about Caleb Williams. And I think he kind of gets a bad rep. So I talk about him there. And yeah, just like the Big 12, you and I, we're going to stay alive. We're just going to keep on thriving and keep on doing our things and making promises that we may not keep, but we're going to keep on trying.
Also, hi, I'm Robbie on YouTube. Just hi, I'm Robbie. You could do it right now. You just boop, boop, boop. And then you go there and it's like, oh my gosh, this channel's awesome. I'm on there at some point in somewhere.
Thank you.
That's Robbie Triano. This has been, and it always will be, Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Dose Grande.